this right here, well, I don't need to tell you what that is, because unless you've literally come crawling out from under a rock, blinking and incomprehensive, you know exactly what this motorcycle is, and you know this because of the promise of the RC390 to offer you an uncompromising sports bike experience, a motorcycle you can actually use on the track and maybe even wear in those knee sliders. All motorcycles will have some amount of compromise. Bike makers will soften a suspension to compromise ride-over handling. They'll tune it for mileage, compromising performance. They'll throw on extra bits of fairing to add bulk, but compromise on weight. With the RC390 though, there don't seem to be any compromises. This is a sports motorcycle, and what you see is what you get. Everything on this bike is here for a reason, and that is to make you go faster. Now, we could have ridden this motorcycle on a regular old hilly mountain road, which is what we normally do, but that would do this bike injustice, because what we have here is a track tool meant to be ridden on a track, which brings us to Bajaj's own test track a little outside Pune. This is going to be fun. Oddly enough, for a race bike, the engine does not feel frantic or rushed. It's the same unit you'll find in the Duke 390. But here, and maybe this is just me, it does feel a little smoother and definitely sounds better. 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds? Sure, no problem. And the 390 will do it in second gear without sounding like the entire thing is going to fall apart. All this happens because there's enough power. You've got a 374cc liquid-cooled 4-stroke engine, making 44 bhp on a new lightweight trellis frame chassis. Unlike, say, a high-powered litre class bike, this is not a motorcycle that's going to give you whiplash from the acceleration. Now, KTM says that the top speed of this motorcycle is between 100 and 175. I managed to hit 165 before I had to slow down for a corner, and that is pretty fast. Because added to that riot of an engine and a super smooth gearbox is the way this bike handles. It's a motorcycle that just begs you to be a bad boy. Now, if you're jumping onto this bike from anything else, it will take you a few laps to adjust. But the thing is, the bike is so razor sharp that you're going to be leaning in before you even realize it. Also, considering that the Duke is such a lightweight, you don't really feel the bike as you steer because everything's happening so quickly. Suspension-wise, you've got upside-down forks in the front and a single monoshock in the rear. And since I was on the track, I got the KTM Tech Cruise to increase the preload on the rear to make the bike even stiffer. Now that's fine, but out in the real world, this bike is not going to be super comfy on broken city streets. Besides the obvious differences, what sets the RC apart from the Duke is the chassis. You can see the subframe higher up, and the steering angle has also become steeper by a few degrees. Standard with the RC390 are the ABS brakes. You've got discs linked on to the bright orange wheels, and the ABS will help you sleep better. Helping you along are the low-profile tubeless Metzeler tires with superlative grip. Now I'm a decent rider and I have a few skills, but this is a new track for me as well as a new motorcycle, but it didn't take too long before I was pushing really hard. Now, there were times when I was hitting a corner too hard or coming in too fast, times when I thought the bike would actually go down. But the RC390 didn't fail me. Like they say, it's more fun to ride super fast on a relatively smaller bike than to ride slow on a large one. The underpinnings in the engine might have been derived from a similar source, but the RC390 is vastly differently styled from the Duke, and for that you can thank the two-piece fairing and the projector lamps that sit recessed in the front. The fuel tank has become slimmer with a 9.5 litre capacity and even more angular. The rear end is also quite tidy, foregoing a lamp cluster and sticking two LED strips right under the upturned tail. Another little detail, the RC looks like a single-seater, like a proper sport bike, but what appears to be a cowl is actually a seat for a pillion. We'd advise against it though. Another bit we love was the fabulous integration of the exhaust tip into the left side of the fairing. KTM says the fairing was heat validated so that the color doesn't fade away from the heat. What carries forward from the Duke though is the switch gear, which is backlit and a bit fiddly, and I can't imagine why out of all the colors in the spectrum, the engine kill button is an ugly brown. love and butterflies, though we've been riding this motorcycle on a track which is the perfect riding experience. Out there in the real world, there are going to be a few issues. For one, riding position is super committed, which means that unless you have the testicular fortitude to ride hunched over all day, this bike is going to be painful, and you can forget about long rides unless you want to take long, multiple irritating stops. Now, I know that a lot of motorcyclists like to think of themselves as lone wolves, but there is going to be that wife, that buddy or that girlfriend who will want to come along for the ride. And this seat, she's not going to appreciate. So the question is, should you buy one? At an ex-showroom price of 2.5 lakhs, for us it's an absolute steal, because what you're getting here isn't a poser bike with a few cowls and graphics. The RC390 is a proper sports bike that will do you proud at the track, should you ever go to one. Perhaps the only competition to this motorcycle comes from its own cousin, the Duke 390, which in our mind is the more practical machine to own. But at the end of the day, this is a fully fed sport bike that will deliver all the performance you want at a price that won't kill you. Well done, KTM.